Okay, Confidence. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate how busy you are. I'm extremely grateful that you've agreed to do this. And without further ado, we said 7 o'clock South African time at 7 o'clock, so you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Grant, for inviting me, and thank you for putting together this very timely forum and timely program for the young talents looking to break into cybersecurity on our continent. So again, without further ado, I'm just going to go straight on to my presentation. And like has been advertised, I'll be speaking about pitfalls to avoid when trying to break into cybersecurity. Now, while we are discussing, I'm assuming that we have the chat section open. So please go ahead, begin to drop in and tell me where you're joining us from, what part of the world you're joining us from, because I know there are people from different parts of Africa and possibly from outside of the continent joining this call. So please let me know where you're joining in from and maybe what domains within cybersecurity you're interested in. So here is a little bit about me if this is the first time you're hearing about me or you're getting to know about me. I'm a three-time founder. I'm a founder of CyberSafe Foundation, AI Cyber Insights, and Merkle Funds. I've also won so many awards. Some of them include being named as a top 40 global thought leader in security for 2024. I also have this API Kitchen show, which I do, that I use cooking metaphors to teach about API security best practices. And I also have a best-selling book around API security as well. So you should definitely check that out. I speak quite a lot around the world, and the topics I speak about are just cybersecurity and, generally speaking, gender inclusion. But again, today we're speaking about how you can break into cyber. But then just thinking about that topic caused me to pause and retrospect. Why do we typically use the word break into? I mean, typically, if you use the word break into, you could connote something very bad. I mean, if you say, oh, don't break into my house or don't break into something, it's typically negative, and it means that there's so much force applied to then be able to achieve an outcome, and then sometimes that force is seen as negative. But then in the context of cybersecurity, it's not negative, but then it also caused me to then think, why are we using the term break into? Just why? And it caused me to realize a couple of things. The first key thing I've realized why we use the term break into is that the industry is attractive, and it's calling out to a lot of people. There's so many people talking about the work they're doing. For some people, they get to earn more because they work here. But then it feels like a mold, a very huge mold. And the exterior of that mold is sort of rock. So it's hard and it's solid, but then it's still also shiny and glistering in its way. So people want to come in to see it, but then there is no clear pathway most times. So that clarity and structure there is no path, there's no paved way that you say, okay, once you do this, you can get in. For careers like medicine that have been around for ages, the path is clear. You go to university, go to a good university, get to study medical, go to study medicine, and then you graduate, you do your 1 year maybe housemanship, and then you become a medical doctor, right? It's just straight out, like it's well laid out. But for cybersecurity that is relatively 20 or 30 years old as a profession, we haven't yet built that sort of very clear path. Again, because of how cybersecurity is, it's not exactly one whole big place that we all stay together and do the exact same things, right? There are different things that we are doing, and maybe also because of this and how our roles in cybersecurity also connect us to other domains is not exactly clear-cut as to how to get in. So I think that this lack of clarity and structure is why the term break in has become one that is accepted to connote how to make an entrance into the field of cybersecurity, which typically is actually getting your first job, because getting your first job is most times all you need. all the other things just fall in place. You get more roles after that, you grow through the ranks if you're putting in the work and things like that. But typically the hardest thing to do is to get that entrance and get that first role, and that's why it's called break into. I wanted us to talk about that so that we are able to set a backdrop for why this is such a big thing and why we have webinars like this discussing it. And so the rest of my presentation will then be about what pitfalls to avoid, because I just want to go straight to the point. And I'm discussing 10 of these pitfalls. Grant, I don't know if the chat box is open, but I would like to basically interact with the audience if that's possible. But
No,
then going back to
it is possible.
Okay, great.
Chat box is open.
Okay.
People can come interact with you. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So please drop your cities or where you're joining us from, and let's be able to interact, because I want to be able to talk to you and know that you're following me on this journey as I'm discussing. So I just going back to the presentation, I wanted to just state that I'll be discussing 10 pitfalls that you should avoid. Now, this is not the most complete set of things to think about, but in my assessment, these are the top 10 things you should think about. You should always have at the fore of your mind, because these key issues or these key pitfalls are those that trap the most people and really just I would say truncate or slow down the growth and progress of people across the path that they have chosen as a way to enter or break into cybersecurity. And the first key problem I basically want to highlight is the biggest one, and that being the inverted triangle. Now, what do I mean by the inverted triangle problem? Now, assume that this triangle that you're currently seeing is the triangle for the number of people that are in cybersecurity or looking to enter cybersecurity. At the very bottom here are the number of people trying to enter cybersecurity from entry-level roles. So you see, it's very, very broad. It's wider at the bottom. And then you find that at the top, that continues to lessen as people go across the ranks in the industry. So analysts, people that want to break in and become analysts, you see that there are very many at the bottom of this triangle. However, the opportunities available for these people to come in are in this form, with the tip of the triangle turned upside down to mean the amount of opportunities that are available for entry-level people. Remember, I said the bottom of the triangle, first triangle, is the amount of people that actually are looking to come in the entry-level roles. But then how many entry-level roles are then available? You see, there are very few, because now the triangle is inverted and is the tip of the triangle that is actually the amount of roles available. So if I was to put this in some kind of numbers, I would say, for example, that the number of people looking to enter versus the number of people, number of jobs available at that level is typically less than a 1-to-10 ratio. That means there are at least 90% more people looking to enter than there are opportunities for you to break in and have your first role in cybersecurity. It doesn't mean that there are no entry-level roles. It just means that comparing that to the number of people that are, fighting over each other, if I was to use that word for lack of a better word, struggling, doing everything to try and come in and get their first jobs. If you put that side by side, there are way more people. So that also means that it behoves on you to then be outstanding. Like, you cannot just do the normal. You can't just be there and expect to land your first role. You need to be able to stand out and shine bright in different ways, and I'll be showing you some of those ways. So business as usual cannot cut it anymore. Honestly, business as usual cannot. You cannot just sit back and think, oh, the job will just come to me. Unfortunately, people are doing way more to get noticed, and you are doing nothing to get noticed. So even when you're noticed, the people who are doing more to get noticed will have a higher chance and better chance than you. What I want you to take away from this slide is, think about it. How can you make yourself unfairly advantaged to land your first role? That is the first thing you should be able to think about. Not just sitting back and thinking it will fall right on your lap. No, it's not going to fall right on your lap, and you need to do something about it. So the question I'm asking you with this slide is, what are you going to do to be outstanding enough that even with an inverted triangle in terms of opportunities, that you will still be among those that would then be able to land those few opportunities down the tip of the triangle? That is my first question to you today. The next key thing I want to basically talk about is the trap of skipping the skills gap analysis. You have maybe joined a boot camp, you have done a couple of online trainings, you have you have studied cybersecurity university. Perhaps you haven't. Maybe you are looking to transition from another domain and you've gone through this nice program to upskill you or to reskill you for the cybersecurity workforce, right? But a key mistake I keep seeing is that people are not looking at, okay, so this tip of the triangle, now that you have that mindset at the back of your mind, this tip of the triangle, what are they now requiring for the few jobs available? What are these people looking for? And then comparing that with what skills they have. So I'm going to take that again. The skills gap analysis basically entails doing a full introspection, an honest introspection of yourself, an honest x-ray of your skills. The skills required in job roles available for people in cybersecurity and the kind of job roles I'm interested in. What skills are they looking for versus what skills do I have? And another way I would say this is mind the gap. Now, that gap is what you've identified, the gap between what you know, what is required. Now, once you know that gap, you'll be more aware of more learning that you need to do by yourself, or maybe enrolling for more training that will now fill that gap. What I typically see is that people are not preparing for job roles, and that's a very poor strategy to have. You need to be strategic. Again, there's an inverted triangle. So the strategy you need to take up now is begin to think, what job roles am I preparing for? What certificates, what skills, in fact, you know what, certifications aside, what skills are required for those job roles? What are they looking for? What are the responsibilities for that job function? Do I have the skills for the responsibilities that job function has? And then by the time you ask yourself these questions, you'll be able to establish what percentage of the skills required to carry out the job functions mentioned do you have. If it is less than 70%, if it is less than 70%, then you have some work to do. You definitely need to come in and continue to learn in a way that you're able to close up that gap and then continue to apply for opportunities. So again, I would say mind the gap. That is the key message I have for you in terms of the second pitfall I see. People are not minding the gap, and because they're not minding the gap, they're falling into the pitfall. So the gap there creates a pit, and then you're falling into that pit, and you're not making it over to break into cybersecurity and land your first role. You need to be able to mind that gap to first be able to also be able to articulate your skills, to be able to articulate your skills properly, to be able to land your get your CV to be able to get you into roles for interviews and things like that. Articulating your skills confidently is also required for you during the interview process. Maybe if you have more than one interviews to go, more than one interviews in the hiring process for the job roles you're basically applying for. So if you're not aware of what skills you have, what is required, and you're not doing the assessment, you will not be able to identify what you're lacking and where you can close off and make up for that. Now, a key thing also not to fall into in terms of this pitfall is not to over prepare. So in such a way that you're looking to have 90% of the requirements for a job function to be able to apply. No, I see a lot of women fall into this pitfall. So I want to really just highlight it. If you have up to 60% of what the job function says they need in terms of skills and responsibility in terms of the job function, you should definitely apply. But when you have less than 60%, you need to begin to ask yourself questions. And even when you have over 60, continue to add on to your skills and continue to grow, because that is exactly how you get to then land that role. But then before I move on to the next slide, I want to really hammer on the issue of certifications. Certifications only cannot get you job, will most likely not get you jobs. You need to have the skills as well that go with those certifications. And that brings me off to my next slide. So again, just summarizing from the other slide that we spoke, I said something about minding the gap. The slide before that one, I spoke about the inverted triangle. And so minding the gap, you need to be able to know where you are in terms of your journey, to land in that first row and what is required. I forgot to mention that the very easy way to know what's required in terms of skills is to do something with ChatGPT that I'm going to basically give you a trick for. What do? You find 5 of those sort of roles that you are looking to go for, 5 job openings for that same role. So it can be one job function, but one category of roles, because again, you could be applying for 3 categories of roles. You could be applying for a SOC analyst role. You could also be applying for a cybersecurity analyst role. You could be applying for one more like that, right? So what you do is, for each of these categories, you find 5 openings that look like them, right? And then you put them in a Word document. Just copy the whole opening, put it on a Word document, copy all 5 of them. The next thing you do is upload that Word document to ChatGPT, and also upload your CV. And then ask ChatGPT, or even leave out your CV and ask ChatGPT what skills to tabulate comprehensively what skills these particular jobs are requiring. It's going to tell you in great detail what those job skills are, and then you can then look at your CV. If your CV is missing those job skills, if you already have them and your CV is missing it, you can also see if your CV is not missing it and you just don't have those skills. You can then look for resources that then give you these skills, right? So then we can move on to the next one, which is set over substance. This is one major pitfall I see a lot of people, they just throw money at certifications. Now, it's a given. There are some sets that are required to validate your skills in certain areas, and certifications are actually important. But certifications alone are not a good strategy. You need to have certifications and the skills as well that are required, and not all of them need to be validated by sets. So what do I mean by that? If you're going for an entry-level role, say cybersecurity analyst role, you need to be able to have a couple of sets. Some of them are now available for free, and you should definitely maximize that as well. I won't take seriously an entry-level person who doesn't have certified in cybersecurity certification, because that is free to write. That's a free exam to write. So why haven't you written it, right? There are many others that will be required of you as well. If you have a Security Plus, you can afford to write Security Plus, by all means write it. Now, if you're not able to write that certification, there are other ways that you can show your skills, and we're going to talk about that now. So I'm saying that to say, maximize sets that are free, for example, or low cost, but have high value. Security Plus is one of them. But then don't just make it a life goal to just be collecting sets without applying them through meaningful projects. You need to be able to apply the certifications that you have to meaningful projects. In that way, you'll be able to showcase your skills in an applicable way and in an actionable way that shows an employer or a hiring manager that you are going to be valuable on their team, and you're ready to get going on day 1 or day 0 even, right? So you need to be able to prioritize substance side by side your prioritization of sets. So skills should then be a key thing you're going for. And you can actually get these skills from not just sets, but also from a lot of other places. I mean, YouTube is a university on its own. So if you're not maximizing YouTube, you're doing wrong. There are many other places you can get the skills that you require to do what you need to do, or to showcase, or to gain just the knowledge that you need to gain for the job roles you're looking to apply to. So we've been able to establish a couple of pitfalls. First, the inverted triangle problem, skipping the skills gap analysis, and now set over substance. And then we're moving on to another one, which is the cyber only job myth. Now, I see this quite a lot, and it's really heartbreaking that a lot of people just go on, and it has to be, their first role has to be just a cyber role, straight out the door, cyber role that has a clearly laid out title. Let me put it that way. A clearly laid out title as being a cyber role. I want to share with you that there is more to this thing. There's more nuance to it. Your first role doesn't have to be a cyber role only, right? Your first role can be an IT role that has some sort of cyber component to it, or has something that leads you on to then be able to get some work experience that's closely knit or tied to cybersecurity. So, for example, if you had a system administrative role that is not exactly like clearly called out in terms of its title, a cyber role, but it is a cyber role because within that function you have some responsibilities that are actually tied to cybersecurity or information security as a whole. So it would then be a pathway to lead you on to possibly your very clearly titled cyber role. Let me put it that way. So I don't want you to be so fixated on getting that cyber title, cybersecurity analyst, and then if it's not cybersecurity analyst, it's not cybersecurity consultant, it's not SOC analyst, it's not compliance analyst, it's not, if it's not one of those very clearly cut out stuff, you don't want it. No, I highly encourage you to apply for those jobs that have the IT jobs but have then a cyber component, because that's a very key and very good way of getting some very quality work experience in. Another key mistake I see a lot of people make is to have your LinkedIn equate your resume holder. This is such a bad thing to do, not only because it doesn't allow you to build a personal brand so strong that people trust you before they meet you, right? It doesn't allow you to have that sort of unfair advantage. Like I mentioned earlier in my very first slide when I was talking about the inverted triangle and how you can make yourself unfairly advantaged. Some people are creating that unfair advantage for themselves by creating a personal brand such that they are very visible and people already trust their competencies or trust them in terms of their skills before they meet them. Would you want to have that too? Just being able to be trusted before people ever meet you. And so that is where I think LinkedIn really plays a major role, where you can already make yourself seen as someone who is skilled, someone who becomes a recruiter magnet. There are people who are using LinkedIn with you and are not job searching, even if they are entry-level people, right? They are having recruiters reach out to them because their LinkedIn profile as a whole, in terms of the skeleton of it, has a lot of key things that they are required to stand out. They have their skill section updated. They have their certification section updated. They have their about section very, very clearly spelled out in such a way that is tailored to the job role that they are basically looking to get. They have their headline very strongly stating their value and the sort of role and the skills that come with. They have all of these things put together. But the cherry on top is they create top of mind awareness by posting at least twice every week in a way that their posts are tightly connected to showing that they have the skills and competence for the roles that they're looking to apply to. I'm going to take that again in case you didn't get me well. You're not just going to be posting on LinkedIn because you're happy and you're thrilled to announce, you're happy to say this, or you're just excited to say it's not just about announcements. Those kind of posts have their place, but as a person looking to break into cyber, which means you are looking to you have a goal of landing a cybersecurity role, you need to be more strategic. Your posts need to be mapping the skills you have identified when you did your skills gap analysis and you saw that they are currently required for the roles that you are looking for. You now would have your post showing you exhibiting those skills by walkthrough videos. For example, you can be creating by text or post making explain certain concepts tied to it. I mean, there are a lot of options you have, but the key strategy that I'm trying to share with you today, and I've done a whole video on that. You can go to CyberSay's YouTube channel to see how my LinkedIn masterclass on how to maximize LinkedIn. But that information is out there. A key thing to do is make sure your strategy is that when you're showing up every day, you're creating an awareness in people's minds about your skills and competencies, as well as your passions within cybersecurity. It's very, very important. It's not just posting anything that you like, but it's those things that actually tie you to those jobs and then make you become a recruiter magnet. I have seen this work so much for people that I have worked closely with to get this done. So please make sure that you're posting right in such a way that you're positioning yourself for opportunity. You're using not just the push effect by applying for opportunities, but you're also using pull effect by maximizing LinkedIn. You're becoming a recruiter magnet using your personal brand. I'm using that phrase very consciously. A recruiter magnet, where you are actually having recruiters reaching out to you. And LinkedIn can make you unforgettable in the right way. Can make you have top of mind where people just think about, oh, SIEM tools. There's someone who knows so much about SIEM tools. There's such a bright talent that I keep seeing on my timeline. Let me reach out to that person, right? There's someone I know who knows so much about ISO 27001. She usually posts, or he usually posts quite a lot around that, and they reach out to you. Oh, are we trying to figure out how to implement this? Oh, there's somebody that I know that knows how to do this. Oh, we need someone to do some application security testing here. There's a guy who does a lot around this thing. He posts a lot around Bob Suit. There's a girl who posts a lot around her bug bounty travels or her bug bounty winnings. Let me reach out to her. So these are the key things. So it's not just documenting your journey, which I highly recommend. Document your journey, but also publicly keep track of your projects, share them, your labs, your practical experiences, just showcase them, because your LinkedIn can become your portfolio during interviews and before interviews, right? That's what I want you to begin to use LinkedIn as, not as a resume holder. After this session, that's what I want you to do. Now, the fifth major pitfall I keep seeing is that we think about cybersecurity skills as flat skills. No, they are not flat skills. And because we think about them as flat skills, so we just go in, we just learn this one, and then we learn the role. I mean, I see people that after learning introduction to cybersecurity, they are thinking, oh, where can I get an internship? Where can I? Again, remember, there's an inverted triangle. So even when you're looking for internships, people are coming with vuvuzelas, they are coming with vuvuzelas of skills that they are blowing, and you are coming whistling. Like, who do you think they're going to pick? Because they already have collated and stacked on enough, right? So don't think about it as flat skills, because when you think about flat skills, you begin to ignore the basics. And when you ignore the basics, you don't exactly become robust enough in your skills. You're not skilled enough for the opportunities that come, and you flop out of interviews. You don't have the confidence enough to even apply for the jobs, right? And the best way to really show you what I mean by cybersecurity skills not being flat is to use this analogy. I really love it a lot, because it then show you some of my thinking around it. Now, this is not an absolute would I say absolute example, because this is not the absolute path, but this is one way I can share as an example of what I'm saying, right? So what I'm saying this to say is that cybersecurity skills can be likened to a burger. Okay, the first layer of the burger could be getting the human skills, through continuous learning. You need to be able to have, people call it soft skills, I call it human skills. You need to be able to collaborate with other people. You need to be able to communicate, both written and oral. You need to be able to have all of these, like analytical thinking. You need to be creative in your thinking and all of those kind of things. So those are human skills. But then we also have other skills, like your ability to manage risk. So risk management is a core part of information security. You cannot say that you're learning information security without this. But I think there's something off here about my burger. Sorry, I didn't put the right order in which is the skills are to come in. So let's go back on that again. I would say that the bottom bone is then the foundation, right? You need to lay that foundation. So you need to be able to understand, first and foremost, your foundational IT knowledge. You need to understand how operating systems work, the different operating systems, possibly at least do two of these, Windows Server and then Linux. You need to be able to understand them, right? That is your foundation. If you don't understand how a computer is communicating with another computer across the world, then why are you in information security? It's not possible that you get anything else right after that. So that foundation needs to be laid down. The next key thing you need to make sure you're able to cover is security fundamentals and principles. You need to be able to understand things like CIA triad, zero trust. You need to be able to understand them well enough that when questions are posed at you, you need to be able to explain them very well. If you don't understand them well enough, you cannot explain them well. So that is sort of like the lettuce in this burger, right? The tomato in this burger is your networking basics and infrastructure security. I cannot tell you how important this is. I cannot tell you enough how important this is. You need to be able to cover this, whether or not you're doing a more, or you're going towards a more technical path of information security or not. So even if you become, say, an application security professional, or you choose to be a compliance person, for example, you need to understand networking basics. It just really gives you breath. It really gives you breath. So when I see people running away from networking basics, it makes me laugh, because when you go to do a PCI audit and they're talking about trust boundaries and you're lost in that meeting, how would you fare? You will fare well, right? So you need to be able to understand these basics, because if you don't have these basics, it will just set you up for mega embarrassment, or possibly not being able to progress well in your career, or even much more, or not even be able to land that first role, which is the biggest consequence here that I foresee. You also need to understand risk management, because that's why I put the party as risk management here. There's nothing you're doing, there's no part of information security that you're not touching on risk management. The whole thing you're doing is just risk management, because even when you're doing penetration testing, you're prioritizing the vulnerabilities in terms of severity and all of the other things, and ability to be able to for attackers to be able to exploit that vulnerability. There are many things that you're actually looking at. What kind of asset is it? Is it a crown jewel? Does it have PII? All of those things. That's all risk management that you're doing, whether or not it's in a role that's compliance or not. So if you don't understand frameworks and compliance standards, at least one or two of them, why don't you have that knowledge? So that is the patty in the burger that I'm talking about here. And I said the human skills here are the onion, so I don't have it fully laid out well on my picture, but I call it the onion, because yes, some people can make their way around it and not have those skills, but they pay dearly for it. Now the sauce, it is not compulsory to have it. In fact, you can get away with not having it. But the source in all of this is specialized expertise. And this is where I say a lot of people can do better. If you're finding a hard time breaking in, pick one domain within cybersecurity, and that's again what's going to help you choose what kind of job roles you're looking at, right? Pick one domain and drill in terms of your expertise. Pick, say, incident response and drill in. Pick digital forensics and drilling. Or if you think your strengths are more around another area, say vulnerability management, drilling. If you think your skills are strong around threat hunting, drilling, such that you have a comprehensive understanding of the tools, a comprehensive understanding of the techniques. You have a very, very strong knowledge. So it's deep knowledge. So you can then have sort of like a strategy where when somebody talks about that, you come into the interview, when such opportunities come up, you come in and then you are blowing everybody away on the interview panel, because you have a specialized skill that then is directly tied maybe to the job function, or is a major part of that job function, and then you have very strong grasp of the skills. That's also another way of ensuring that you're not grappling at everything, because that's one key thing that I see. A lot of people are everywhere. You're everywhere. You're trying to learn everything, and so because you're trying to learn everything, you learn nothing, or you don't learn enough to be impressive. So that is one key thing I want you to think about. What would I make to be my what would I make to be my source in my career? What is that thing that I'm going to do? And please, in all of this, don't forget that your cloud basics are very, very important. If you don't have the cheese in your burger, it will not taste nice. So please, in whatever you do, make sure you pick up one of these technologies, maybe AWS or Azure or GCP. Pick up one of them and actually get like even a fundamental, a foundational set. Usually, most of them are free. Get one of them and know that you have those cloud basics in your burger for your skills. The next key thing is no fire in the belly. Now, this sounds funny, but what I'm trying to say is that you're not passionate enough Possibly because you've heard that, okay, people earn six figures here and you've come for the money. And there is no real purpose. I mean, there's nothing wrong with coming for the money, right? But there is no real purpose. Yeah. So after some time, when you're not seeing the money, you become slack, right? So you need to. People can feel passion. Passion is a form of energy. So if people cannot feel that, and it shows in many ways, it shows in how much you've taken a chance on yourself. It shows in how much you've learned. Some people are waiting for just a boot camp to teach them everything. You want people to hand you down everything. Oh, you're still asking questions like, what is cybersecurity? Like, when there's ChatGPT, there's Google to Google. Like, you're in that phase where you're not looking for information. You're not hungry for it. You're not searching for information in a way that enriches your knowledge bank. All right, it's that fire in your belly that makes you so restless. You want to continue learning. You're hungry for more, and it shows. It shows in the kind of CV you come out building. It shows in the volunteering you would have done. It shows in the projects bank you would have come through. So by the time you come to an interview, they're asking you certain questions. Like, oh, I remember at such a time when I set up my home lab and I was able to do XYZ. Oh, I can actually say that I was able to set up a honey pot, and I was able to understand this threat. Why? Because there's fire in your belly. So that passion sets you apart. Again, in the inverted triangle, right? You need to be able to show up in a way that you show employers that you're hungry. And that's one thing that you can't put on your CV, but all hiring managers want. I will never hire anybody that doesn't show that attribute. But it's not something like you can have, in my skills, hunger. No, there is no way. But your CV can tell me whether you're hungry or not. And so if you're one of those, for example, that went through a boot camp and then you can't show proof of taking initiative after that boot camp to continue self-learning, you don't have fire in your belly. I'll give you one example. Some of our girls in Cyber Girls Fellowship, I don't know if you know that I'm tied to that. I run the biggest cybersecurity training and mentorship program for girls on the African continent. A lot of them go to interviews and they ask them questions like, oh, you finished the program, the Cyber Girls program in September last year. From September last year till now, what have you been doing to grow your knowledge? The ones who have been doing something will tell the employer, or rather the hiring team, and then they will be able to answer that question clearly, right? And it's showing the employer that, oh, they're taking initiative. That is the reason they're asking that question. And initiative is clearly tied to having fire in your belly. So please, anyone that's listening to this, don't get weary. Keep pushing and keep pushing in a way that you're gaining this knowledge for yourself. And then it brings me to the seventh, or is it seventh? The eighth pitfall. I'm almost through my slides. So I have just 2 more to go, and then you can ask me all of the questions you want to ask me. The eighth pitfall I see is that people are not building mental resilience. It's very important to mention this because along this path, make rejection normal. In fact, if they're not rejecting you enough, you're not trying enough. Because the ability to get rejections without staying mentally deflated for too long is what I'm calling resilience. You need to treat your job search as a numbers game because that's what it is. Again, an inverted triangle. There are a lot of people that are qualified as well as you or better. So you need to continue to apply. You need to continue to seek out those opportunities. You need to begin to reach out to people. You need to, again, that brings me to my next point, but again, I won't jump right into that one. But you need to be able to have mental resilience because it is a marathon. Your job search is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So if you're expecting to just apply to one place or to 5 places and then you are getting 2 offers, you're joking. You don't know the job market we are in. So please, treat your job search journey as a marathon. Make taking rejections. In fact, I would say make sure that rejections, you're able to eat rejections for breakfast and smile while at it. And at lunchtime, you're continuing your journey. Ahead is the way we say it where I'm from in Nigeria. Ahead, you're moving. It's okay to feel deflated and feel that, oh my God, I was rejected again. But don't let it stay for too long. Just like, okay, it's fine, we move on. Or what can I learn from that? What can I pick up from that? Right? And then if these rejections are also happening in so much and you're not going to pass a certain stage, for example, you're not getting into the interview stage, then you look at your resume and say, okay, what am I doing? What can I do to improve this CV? That very, very honest introspection and not taking it to heart is what will help you keep refining till you land that role. But the key thing is to stay very resilient up here and continue to see every interview or not getting an interview as a learning and seeing where you can do better. And while you're trying, you keep increasing your skills such a way that you are flat out fantastic and excellent and attractive that people cannot afford not to have you in their team. That's where you should be. That's where you should be. So keep pushing, keep driving, keep being mentally strong. In fact, you say in Nigeria, and I'm going to say it the way we say it, and then I'll say it in good English. It's say, now we'll give up, mess up. That means it's the person who relents, who drops the ball, who doesn't continue. That's the person that's lost out of the game. But as long as you keep going, keep growing, keep increasing your skills, keep trying, keep showing up strong, keep showing up on LinkedIn, keep applying for those roles, what will happen is at some point, something will give and you will break in. But that resilience, that mental resilience, is not be deflated for too long, to mourn that rejection, but not for too long. To pick yourself up and keep going, to continue trying, to keep growing regardless, is what I needed to do. Another key pitfall is, which is second to the last pitfall, the ninth one, is not networking enough. A lot of you do not belong to a local organization, a local cybersecurity association in your country. You do not belong to any community whatsoever. You do not have a group of peers like you that are in the same level. You don't have any local professional associations you're part of. You've not been part of any community whatsoever. You're not reaching out to people on LinkedIn. You're not joining groups on LinkedIn that align with where you're going to. You're not adding new people, connections. You're not making connections on LinkedIn, for example, in a way that showcases, or rather in a way that moves you closer to your goal of landing a role. So not networking is enough is a problem. You're not going to events, cybersecurity, tech events. You need to network. You need to meet many people because of this one reason I'm going to share. There are many more reasons, but this one reason is the most. Majority of the opportunities in cybersecurity, job opportunities in cybersecurity, are not advertised. I'll say that again. Majority of the open roles in cybersecurity are never advertised. There are most times going to be recommendations that people are just going to make and pass on your CV. There are going to be requests from communities, and people just pass on people's CVs because cybersecurity is such a trust heavy part of information security. So people want to hire people they can trust and not just some rando sometimes. And then sometimes when you open a call for applications for jobs, people just receive so many CVs and they can't go through the trouble of going through the heap of them. And so they just depend on certain other people for recommendations. So please, I would say I highly recommend leave your house, go to networking events, attend webinars, connect with subject matter experts, connect with peers like yourself. Because networking shouldn't just be networking people up higher than you, it should also be networking people like you, because your peers will bring you even as much value as people that are senior to you. So really, networking all round is very important in your job search strategy. You need to be able to meet people and hear what's happening, right? Because there are some opportunities that will just not knock on your door if you're not networking. And the last pitfall I see, because I need to take questions, is that people are chasing too many skills at once. Guys, pace yourselves. Create a roadmap for yourself. Again, if you ask ChatGPT after doing your skills gap analysis to create a roadmap for you in the next 6 months to have to get XYZ skills to close that gap that you've identified, ChatGPT can do that for you. There is no excuse why you can't pace yourself today. The only excuse why you can't do that is awareness, and the only excuses why you can't pace yourself now are awareness and discipline, because it cannot even be a cost issue. You can get a lot of trainings for free now online. So many training grounds for free, and if you're searching and you're hungry enough, you're going to find them. If you ask me more specific questions, I may be able to show you some of those, but please really don't chase too many skills at once. You want to be able to maximally do 2 things at once, maximum. but I highly recommend one at a time. So you're learning one tool, one technique, and you're building projects and you're building a portfolio. Your GitHub, you're being able to document your learnings on Git. You have your GitHub, for example, you're able to document them maybe on Medium or on LinkedIn and things like that. You're able to build a portfolio because you're not chasing too many skills at once. So pace yourself, create a roadmap where after this tool, you're learning this tool, after this, you're doing that. And in 6 months, you will not be recognizable in the right way if you're doing the right things and pacing yourselves. I think I've spoken quite a lot and I'm hoping I've covered a lot of ground, but I'm happy to take questions right now. Thank you so much.
Confidence, absolutely fantastic insights. Can you see the Q&A side on your side?
I've just clicked on it now. Oh my God, I did see this before now.
You can scroll through it. You've covered most of it, but you can see which ones you didn't cover and just answer that. But absolutely awesome.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, great. So, okay, I see. I wish I'd seen this earlier on. I was looking out for the chat. I didn't click the Q&A because I would have loved to just acknowledge people now, and then also speak in their context. So sorry about that. I see you, Kalien. I see you, Kalien from South Africa. DevSecOps, so fantastic. I love this. Is right up my alley. So if you want to ask any specific questions around it, I would love to answer them. I see Peterson from Cape Town as well. I see Michael. I see Grace. So let me scroll right up for the questions since I've already passed that point. Oh, I see someone from Canada. Interesting. Let me see if I can find any questions. Okay, great. So I see here from Roxanne, what's the best way to experience? What's the best way to experience? This will be a lifelong journey, man, to mastery path. For example, from junior to architect. Sometimes it makes the journey more enjoyable to start with the end in mind. Exactly. So I agree with you, starting with the end in mind. But I would say that end shouldn't be too far off. Pick a near end as much as possible. But the end in mind should then be like for you to design a broader big picture for yourself. And when you design that big picture for yourself, okay, from here I want to be able to get here and here and here, but I'm starting off with this immediate point, maybe with this first role, and then graduating on to that. Because to be honest, you can't be an architect for your first role. It's highly unlikely they're going to be able to land a first role as an architect. So I agree with you very much. And then there is one about certification costing money. And saying certifications cost money and all are not equal, it seems, correct? Which I've mentioned. If someone has a limited budget, where should they start? Some job applications want CISSP for junior analysts. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold, so I'm struggling to speak. But I would say that please don't ignore certifications, right? But there are certain certifications that are definitely out of reach. That's no problem with yours. It's just that we're having an issue as an industry. It disconnects with the hiring, the HR people, and what the hiring manager most likely wants. Because I have no excuse that's tenable why CISSP should be required for any entry-level role, any. It just doesn't make sense because you cannot even get the cert. The cert requires 5 years of work experience. So aside the cost of it, it just doesn't make sense for you to approach it. Right? So I would say it depends on the kind of jobs you're looking for. If you're looking for an analyst role, sets like the Security Plus I've mentioned is very cool. Pick up other free sets that you can take. I've mentioned the certified in cybersecurity and maybe any other course set to the sort of role you're looking for, and then be able to attack those ones. But then I would say lean more to showcasing your skills more, especially when cost is an issue. How would you showcase your skills more? Go and play on battlegrounds, for example, and be able to conquer as many and document them in your CV. You have walkthrough videos that you have documented your ability to be able to conquer those things. Write them down somewhere, right? Document that there is I think there's, what is it called again? There is pond.secure, something like that. Let me look for that on my notes. There are platforms like that that you can then practice. There is Hack the Box as well, where you have challenges. Yeah, sorry, pwn.college. So pwn dot college. So that is the martial arts themed playground as well, that you can showcase your you can get a lot of skills and practice, and then you can then put that on your CV as well. There are a lot of practice grounds basically for any sides of any domain within cybersecurity that you want to showcase your skills, because you can do that definitely without basically going the whole certification route. But then there are a few sets that you will need, and some of them are free that you can actually start off from. Okay, so Grant has already answered this question. Yes, so free sets. What ways can you recommend to get the required skills? Yes, people say build project, but how and where exactly? E.g., for GRC analyst, how would I acquire and then showcase my skills? Very easily. Thank you so much for giving me an example. So if you're looking for a GRC analyst role, think about a startup around you. What policies can you build for them? Is there a playbook you can create for them? Right? Pick up, just make them I don't mean you don't even need to contact them. Make them would I say a fictitious company you're working for, and then be able to create that and document them. I tell you, it's as easy as that, right? It's as easy as that. Just sit down and begin to think, if I got this sort of role, what would the job functions look like? And then build projects around them. That's what I would say. So build projects is not just do any project, but it's also projects that will be tied to the job functions. Like you mentioned, a GRC analyst. What would a GRC analyst be doing? Take a framework, take a standard, apply it to the operations of a fintech around you. Excuse me. Right? So that is one way that you can do this. And then there are many other platforms that you can also learn from and be able to showcase this from. There's Try Hack Me. There is I think Cyberry also has something along those lines. For GRC, I'm just going to think of more and share them with you, but the key thing about how is mapping it to what you most likely be doing on that job function, and maybe possibly finding a fictitious company you can apply those things to. For cloud, it's also the same way. You have some credit that you can also use to be able to play around with things and documenting them in articles or in a Git entry. How should you prepare for interviews? This is a very broad question and I'll be struggling to answer it. So give me a second. I need to clear my throat. Okay, now I think it should be better for me. How should we prepare for interviews? I think I don't have a clear-cut way to say how you're going to do that, but I think one of the easy ways to do that is look at the job function, the role you're applying for, Google search it, or even better, search it on YouTube. There are so many resources around preparing for interviews on YouTube that could really help you. How to structure the answer, what kind of questions you most likely be expecting in that sort of interview, what stage of the interview you're in would determine how you prepare and what you prepare for. So I would definitely say that you should check out YouTube. For some interviews that are very technical, you could also have some sort of code test as well. There will also be videos there of people, or even substacks of people who have gone through that you can check out. So yes, I would definitely say that you should look at those interviews, those videos to prep as well. And there are some PDFs you also find somewhere to also really prepare you. But the key thing is, what job role are you looking to prepare for the interview, and then searching that on YouTube. YouTube is literally a university. How do you not get overwhelmed with all the areas of cybersecurity when starting? Do you prioritize learning a little bit of everything or perfecting one thing? So this is what I would say. If you notice my burger, I didn't start off with specialization at the bottom of my burger, right? There were some things that regardless of what path I pick, I would need to have those skills. So you get those skills in first. So your fundamentals, your IT fundamentals, your cybersecurity fundamentals, your networking basics, get those in. Your cloud, get those in. But at the same time, begin to read about the different domains within cybersecurity and find which one best aligned to your innate abilities, your innate the things that you most likely will enjoy, and then the things that your current skills also really tie into. especially if you're transitioning from another domain or another field, right? I also want to add that there are a lot of a day in the life videos that will then give a clue into what do these people do, what do threat hunters do, what do SOC analysts do, what do digital forensic specialists do, what do network security engineers do. For example, what do cybersecurity engineers do? What's different between a cybersecurity engineer and a cybersecurity architect, for example? You'll be able to learn all of this. What does a cloud engineer, a cloud security engineer do on a day-to-day? There's so many videos you can watch. And I think those will now inform you to begin to look at, okay, what skill sets are required? What do I currently have? And all of that. And then you can choose which domain to then pick. And then once you pick one domain, again, the tip I've given of then looking at what job openings are available in those particular domains in terms of entry level, and then taking those and asking ChatGPT that question to then see what you need to learn, what you need to know, what skills you need to have, and then pacing yourself, just creating that roadmap like I described to you. That is one thing I would say. I wouldn't say learn a little bit of everything, especially when you're trying to then take the strategy of the T strategy. I like to call it the T strategy, where you then first go lean and then go broad, right? So that could be something that you do. But then if you don't have that very solid base where you have a hip pocket skill, that's what I like to call it. You have a hip pocket skill, but then even with the hip pocket skill, you have enough foundational expertise to work just about anywhere. Is the strategy I think really works, because then you're broad enough and then you're narrow enough to then land the first role. I hope this has answered your question, Hope Nduta, that to pace yourself, you just need to be able to know where you are, know about the different fields in terms of just not in terms of learning the skills there, but reading about them, what they entail. That's about what you need, what skills are required and all of that, and begin to choose for yourself. So I hope that I've been able to answer that question. Yeah, Osman, you actually touched on what I just said as well, which is making sure that you're covering those basics well enough, such that you're not too specialized early enough, because you shouldn't be too specialized early in your career, because you just need that first step in anyway. So if you're spending too much time and narrowing down too much in incident response, such that you cannot do any other role and you don't have enough base anywhere else to fly on to another opportunity, then you're really just shortchanging yourself. You need to be able to be broad enough to cover the fundamentals everywhere, and then basic enough to and then narrow enough to have a hip pocket skill. I'm going to go to, okay, great, I'm almost done with the questions. Oh my god. I hope we can spill off a bit, Grant. I'm open to that. I want to make sure I'm able to cover a lot of questions here.
Confidence, we are at your mercy. You can go as long as you want to.
Okay, great. So I see Zolani's question, and I want to try and answer them as much as I can. So very insightful insights, Confidence. Thank you so much, Zolani. As Grant has given us a go ahead to ask as many questions, I've got a couple. Okay, great. So what strategies would you recommend for someone with a background in IT compliance and audit who wants to transition into cybersecurity roles in the future? I mean, this is a walk in the park for you, really, Zolani. If you're looking to transition, just pick which area you want to transition to. Your compliance background gives you quite a lot of an edge, and so you pick which one and then you narrow down. My thing is make that decision, and then begin to go at it, because then you'd have created a goal. You also be able to know what is required. And so you'll not be grasping in the air, grappling what to hold in the air. You would have a destination and know what you want to grab. Question number 2 is, how can professional certifications, SAP, CISA, leverage their expertise to create a niche in cybersecurity, especially in securing ERP systems? I think, again, a very easy way to do that is, are there opportunities where that's currently required? What are the requirements? I think a set like CISA, for example, really gives you quite a broad edge as an auditor to be able to see, okay, so what compliance requirements are these systems, are ERP systems supposed to meet? Are you also going to securing them from the angle of building them or from the angle of deploying them? Because that's another key thing exactly to look at as well. So picking that niche again, if you also have had experience with ERPs in your work that you've been doing before, then adding a security component to it will just be walking the park as well. So you would look at if you already have CISA certification, that would be great. But I would say that if this is a mid-management role, then a season will be more like it for me. If you were to ask me, a season will be more like it. Then another cloud set that is very broad, something like this, I think CCSE, that would be a great one as well to then add on to this in terms of ERP systems. Let's see. Question number 3 is, based on your experience so far, what specific technical and soft skills are most valuable for cybersecurity professionals in Africa today? I would say analytical skills and creative thinking. Very easy. Analytical skills will always be on top because everything we do is about solving problems. So you have to solve problems, and the problems will come at you every day. So being able to analyze what that problem is and finding a way to solve it, especially with very limited resources like we see every day in Africa with cybersecurity budgets, that's a key thing. And then with creative thinking, it's also with solving those problems, but in novel ways, being adaptable to be able to solve those problems in different, unique ways. And being amenable to changes as well, because those will come, right? So I would say in terms of soft skills, those will be my top 2. And then, of course, the third one will be communication. The top 3 will be communication. The third one will be communication, yeah? You need to be able to have at least one kind of communication that you are very good at. I happen to be great at 2, but if I was to pick one that you must be good at, it would be written communication. Like, there is no walking around that one. You may never present something to anyone outside of your team in your first 3 years of InfoSec, of being in InfoSec, but you cannot escape it. You will need to train some other people, you need to do some sort of presentation, but in the beginning, you also cannot escape, like your first 3 years, you cannot escape writing. So you need to be able to hone your written skills, your written communication skills. So those will be my top 3 soft skills. And for technical skills, again, it really just depends on what the job functions are, and it's so broad, but definitely you want to be able to understand networks very well. You need to be able to have that at the back of your mind, as a base for your skills, basically, right? That needs to be like a proper thing that you're able to master. And then the rest will be dependent on what part of InfoSec you choose to go. The technical skills will then be dependent on that. But then I also want to highly recommend that in all of that, you do a good balance between techniques and tools, because at this stage, if this is entry level, you're more hands on the keyboard than anyone else. So your ability to use tools, a variety of tools, should be top priority for you, should be absolute top priority for you. So learning tools are a very core, broadly speaking, a core technical skill you should have. What are some common pitfalls you've seen professionals make and how can they be avoided? Okay, I've spoken about this already, so I won't go on that. Lastly, what challenges do African IT professionals face in cybersecurity, and how can they build resilience against these challenges? I would say just resources, basically. I think that we already have so many problems. We are built rugged in Africa, right? We are built rugged, and what I find most times as some of the biggest challenges are just infrastructure issues. Some people just have power outages, what we call in South Africa load shedding. In other parts of Africa is called different things, but something as little as not having power is a big thing, and it's very frequently so. People want to learn, they are not able to afford computers. People have been on their learning journey for so long, and they're consuming so much internet data, and they're not able to afford that as often as possible. As often as they would love to. So these are all of the things that I would say are major issues that they're having. But again, all of these things, there's always a way. There's always a way. And I would share a proverb before I continue reading more of the post. I'll share a proverb. My mom says something. She says that God will not God will not send flies. Something like along the lines of God will always give the cow a long tail to drive away the flies. I don't know. Grant, I don't know if you've ever heard that proverb, but it basically says that the flies that are disturbing the animal, that God gives that animal a long tail to help to drive them away, which means that there's already a coping mechanism that you have. You just need to have the will, and like I said, mental resilience to keep going at it, and then you'll be able to figure out what works around. For power outage, it could be the fact that when you have power, you're able to, you just go at it very heavily and do a lot of work in that period of time, or you find a workstation where you can basically go to once in a while to be able to get access to power and maybe internet access as well. But you need to find those workarounds. You need to find a coping mechanism. There is no option around it. And when everything else is laid out, you'll be better off for it. But you need to fight for your life. That's what I want to say. Fight for your life, fight for your future. There's no reason not to. If anything, all of these challenges should be fuel in your car, the car of your future. You should be able to fuel you, drive you even more. Challenges you're having, you should be such a way that you're thinking about them like, let this be the last time in my life that I'm ever going through this. And then fueled by those challenges to continue to try and be better. Thank you so much for saying, oh, you love my energy. Thank you. Okay, so I see. Okay, the rest are not questions. Okay, I've seen one more question. How could somebody go about that, especially someone in Africa? Landing remote roles outside your country of residence. Okay. I think this is the last question I'm going to take because I've already spilled past the time, and if there are no more questions, then we can go on. But I want to say that that's great to aim to land a remote role outside where you live. But I also want to say that the likelihood of you doing that, especially in today's world, is dwindling. So add that as some sort of something you do, but that should not be the only goal you have because of the slim chances. You don't also want to put your energy too much in such a way that by the time you don't get that, you already are deflated too long and you've already been beaten down too much before you try locally. The key thing is when you get your first role locally, you increase the chances of that remote role coming. I'm going to say that again. When you get your first role locally, you increase the chances of your second role coming, right? And there are certain markets that are more friendly to those remote roles than others. So, for example, job markets in Europe are generally more friendly than job markets in, say, the US in terms of remote roles when you're not based in that place, right? So you want to look at the nuances of the regions you're looking to apply to, right? And then look at if your country is amenable to that in terms of opportunities. Are they able to hire someone from your region? Let me put it that way. And then you look at job portals as well that those regions generally have their jobs published on. Another great place to do that as well is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a gold mine. If you search hiring, for example, in the search box, you'll find a lot of people hiring. You can then filter which of those jobs to see which of those jobs are remote, and some of those jobs that say remote, it's also maybe remote national, which means you must be living in the country. You need to look at those little things as well. You must be living in the country to be able to take the role. While some are remote, you can work from anywhere. So those ones you can work from anywhere is what you look out for. But again, looking at the right places and having the right mindset about it. Okay, it's not that this has to be your do or die. This wasn't necessarily be my first show. If it's my first show, all good. But then I can be looking elsewhere as well because again, inverted triangle, and the fact that just getting is more important than anything else. There's another question here of, I've been curious about emerging threats in API security. From your experience, what should developers prioritize to address them? Whew, this is a rabbit hole now. You're going to set me on to sing. Okay, so I think with API security, the major thing that I see is basically not even having an inventory of those APIs, right? That's typically the first place that everything starts off from. But I mean, even at ground one, or ground zero even, a lot of organizations don't have a complete inventory of their APIs. So they are not even able to know if those APIs are maintained, all of them, what they have access to. They're not able to tell what kind of data, what's the sensitivity level of the kind of data they have access to. And so they're not able to do even risk prioritization very properly with those APIs. So I would say just an inventory is the first place. The next key thing I see as well is, I would say, the 2A's, authentication and authorization, as well as input validation. Those two tie in my head in terms of what's wrong. So I've seen a lot of APIs, for example, where there is a token for authorization, but the token is not even, like, the developer is seeing the token and is using a regex, for example, to be able to tell that there is a token passed on with that request, but is not authenticating and authorizing with that token. They're just checking for the presence of it. So that means I can have random things sent in, and I will get in as well. I also find that authorization and authentication is very poorly implemented. So because it's poorly implemented, it's not properly tied in and everything, people also make a major, or developers make a major mistake of thinking that everyone who interacts with their application, whether web application or mobile application, is actually interacting with it from the interface. That's a very big mistake. So you find that a lot of the work in terms of authorization and authentication and input validation is done only from the client side. It must be client and server side, because there are some people who use tools. People like me will not use the interface and be clicking around to be able to access things. No, we would use, for example, a tool to be able to go behind and get what we need. And I found that going behind the graphic user interface is typically the way a lot of attackers and testers like me would go about checking whether or not your defenses are right. So input validation and the double A's, which is authentication and authorization, are some of the key issues, as well as an inventory. Right? And inventory is what also drives risk management, drives maintenance, and other things. Let me move on now. So I see the next question here is, what's your insight on how to navigate a situation where you wish to volunteer to assist a startup in building cybersecurity program or resilience, but have no real data to assist with your assessment, e.g. access to asset inventory or related data? I think the question from Leslie. Okay, the question from this person, I don't know who this person is, anonymous, will be the last question I'll answer. Leslie's question will be answered by Grant, and then we'll call it a day. I want to say that if you don't have access, what does that really mean? Does that mean that the startup has accepted that you should work with them to create the program, or does it mean that you are trying to create the program from outside without their approval, in a way that allows you to build a portfolio for yourself in your job hunt? Those will be two different things entirely. If it's the case of building for your job hunt, then I would say that your assessment should then be with information that you can also find online. So what would a typical startup in that sort of category or in that industry typically have to deal with? Okay, I think there's a follow-up comment. No, you just said Mika. That's your name, but I need some more context in this question. I think I'm going to wait a bit for you to add that context so that I can answer the question better. But I would say that use information around categories, around startups in that category that other startups you're looking at using as a target for your program you're building would most likely share similar situations or similar realities with the startup you're going to be using to create your program. So pick one that, if you're saying fintech, for example, say the fintech you're using, you don't have access to that information around what they'll be like. But then there are many fintechs across the world that you have some form of data spread across from. Maybe they've had publications in the media to maybe any forward-facing information that you can find about this other startup that works in the same industry as the one you're looking to profile. That would be a good way to go about it as well. Okay, so I'm going to cede the stage now to Grant.
Confidence, thank you so much from my side. I've got the full appreciation for how busy you are and how many people is fighting for a slice of your time. I want to say thank you sincerely. I appreciate it. For me, being in the industry for 8 years, I found it extremely valuable. I found insights I can use to break into my next role. I want to say thank you. I can see all the love on the chat. Thank you very much. For
Thank you.
those on the call, we will upload the recording by next week, Friday latest. I'll try for earlier, but Friday latest. Follow the page. We are announcing the next speaker tomorrow. And as you can see, we're trying to bring global insights, and the objective is very simple. We want to make sure that you don't spend time, money, and resources doing the wrong things. So we're asking thought leaders to share insights with you. We're giving you the opportunity to ask people questions, and it can save you a lot of time and money down the line. Thank you so much, Confidence.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Good night and good evening, and thank you to everyone who also attended. Bye bye.